market analysis wasn't necessarily to see what is the peak that we can have that house going for. That's what a lot of people think it is. How high can we push this? Okay. But ultimately, what the market analysis in my eyes is, how can we keep from leaving money on the table?
Welcome to the video podcast, however we're going to produce this. Today, Dave Steineck is with us, who's the TL of Keller Williams Greater Des Moines. And one of the things that he presented in a presentation this week was just the numbers the agents with inside of brokers are selling, how many units, volume, all that stuff. Because I'm a numbers nerd, I thought it was really interesting. It did turn out that Keller Williams is at the top of some of these. So this is not just, hey, Keller Williams is the best, everybody should be at Keller Williams. That's not the point of doing this basically presentation and conversation. I want to dig into deeper of what do the numbers actually look like, why do they matter, what are they trending, and then just how does basically the market size come into play in each brokerage. So Dave, before we dig deep, give us like the TL of Keller Williams. What does that mean?
Okay.
Just real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So the TL is, of course, Keller Williams, as you may or may not know. A lot of people refer to it as KW. We are a company of acronyms from front to back. So the TL is team leader, which is essentially the CEO, chief executive officer of the market center. What that means is oversee day-to-day operations, agent matters, all the way to recruiting, retention, any type of system growth.
So this data that you put together, it was presented at a team meeting.
Yes.
With an intent to show agents, hey, where does Keller Williams stand in the marketplace compared to other brokers, compared to the market?
Yeah. So and it's kind of interesting because that's one way to say it. The one of the reasons that I truly brought it up is because I follow this month after month. So every month we have a program for brokers that we call broker metrics. And that's where I can get in and I can pull up any agent that is in DMAR, which is Des Moines Area Association of Realtors. I can pull that information out and I can see how this person's projections are going. So each individual agent, I could see if they're up in production, down in production. If somebody had a lot of production and they're struggling, maybe I can reach out to them and say, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? And talk about that. So when we're looking through the broker metric system, every month at the end of the month, I pull numbers for what did December look like? What did January look like? What did March look like? I really like to look at is where are we in terms of market share? If there is 100% of homes out there that get sold, which that's the case. If it got sold, it's sold 100%. So where are we in that with keeping in mind that we have a goal? It's higher than where we're at right now. But anyway, it's a measurable that I look at every month. And so the biggest reason that I brought this to our market center in our meetings is because where I have seen our numbers going in relation to our competition. And when I look at that, what I've noticed is that we have momentum. We have gained some major momentum and our momentum is increasing. We are actually increasing the gap of market share between us and our competitors.
Yep.
So that's very important for us on a couple of reasons. First of all, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, you want to pay attention to your numbers.
Absolutely.
We as agents should do that. So one thing that I do, I don't use broker metrics, and maybe I should. Maybe I should reach out to you and say, hey, where do I stand compared to the rest of the agents?
Sure.
Right? Because I feel like I don't necessarily want to measure against, Angie Sly or Tony Sly. Yeah. I want to measure against.
Or maybe you do. But
yeah. I always want to beat them.
Yeah. I mean, we're always competitors. Right?
Exactly. But I always want to know, like, where am I at in the agent count, because am I going down? Are others doing better? Am I going up? Or where am I at?
Right. So what am I missing? Yes.
Always trying to track.
Yes.
So you guys are doing, yeah.
Absolutely. And this is no different than that. So the bottom line is that we are all producing something, whether it's selling real estate or for me, helping agents be more productive and more efficient. So part of what's interesting here when people say, wow, your numbers are really going up, our market share is going up. Our numbers as far as sales units are about at a plateau. Everybody else is going down.
Gotcha.
So when we see that the entirety of the market has decreased in volume by 30%, yet we have maintained, that means that inherently our market share has gone up. Are we increasing our sales units? No, but we're not going down. Whereas the other people, if you say, are you increasing units? No, in fact, they are going down. That's why market share to me is equally as important as like dollars and volume. You know, if I came to you and I said, hey, last year we did 2,800 transactions. This year we're doing 2,600 transactions. And people start freaking out going, oh my God, what's happening? It's like, look, we are actually gaining in market share because the other brokerages are doing less.
That makes sense. So some of these slides will tell that story. So let's go total unit numbers.
Yeah, so that's total numbers of units sold in December. And you can see that we were at 6.4% market share. So that's a pretty good number to be at, with our nearest competitor being at 5.7%. And now this is by individual offices. This would not be the entirety of a company.
Right.
Now, also with that, I always pay attention to days on market as well, which we're decent at days on market at 52. So keep in mind, again, December. Okay.
Yep. That's what this data is December of 2022.
Correct.
And so you weren't really presenting to, that's interesting. The office, it's separated by office, right?
Correct.
So some of our competitors have multiple offices. So it's tough to Keller Williams has basically one office, right?
Yes.
But what you can do is you can always compare to them, to others, to see where you're at, where you're down.
Right.
So it isn't
So within here, you'll see also when we look at the numbers per unit, within this count, you'll see that the number of units per agent, we had 1.9 units in that month. 1.9 units per agent sold, whereas our nearest competition there was at 2. Okay. So I know that it's just slightly above, but when you're talking hundreds of agents, that's where you can start to see a difference. Okay. And the other thing, I'll kind of jump back to that. There are a couple of brokerages of brands out there, owners that might have a dozen or 19 different brick and mortar locations. That's fine if they want to run their business that way. Personally, I think it's a waste of money, on many counts. So if they just kind of want to throw away their money that way, hey, let them go. And then when you start seeing that a company is down 30% in production, now what happens? Do we start seeing those doors closed? Do we start seeing them shift? And that creates turbulence, which is why we've built this the way that we have built this. Okay. So we're one of the only owners of companies through here that has been through what we call a market shift, back in 2008. And then, previous shifts, 2002 was a little bit 1 and 2. So, we've survived several of those. Most of the agents within our market as a whole didn't experience even the last one.
It's one of the most fascinating things that I always ask agents that have been around forever is tell me what that experience is. What do I need to prepare for?
Yeah. So with this one, the slide that you've got up right there, in number of units, we're doing really well. 6.4% market share compared to 5.7%. In December, the other one that I look at is the total dollars in volume that we sold. And we're actually number 2 in that category. And the numbers are almost flipped compared to the number of units sold. We're at 5.7% market share, where the next the person ahead of us is at 6.3. Now we're nearly a full point ahead of the number 3 group, which is fine with me. So anyway, the reason I pull these up again is I'm looking for trends. Okay. So we have some work to go, but we typically were residing in that number 2 position for the longest time.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
So in general, our brokerage has some momentum. We're gaining some market share against our competition based on this data.
Yes. Now, real quick, the other thing I'll look in there is dollars in volume here for January. This, we actually took the number 1 seat, not by much. We're number 1 and number 2 are both at 4.8. We just had slightly a little bit more. We're still both 4.8, but we had a few more transactions. So that's good. We jockeyed into that number 1 position, which we all like being number 1.
Okay, let's dig into that, right? The green versus the yellow. What's
Oh, sure.
let's
So
dig into just explain what those are.
You bet. On the slides, the greens are listings taken by that brokerage, where the yellows are the numbers of buyer sales that we've got. So if we look clear down,
it's total closed units. It's just how is your
correct.
listings versus buyers split.
Right. So if you go clear down into the 9th position there, where we see it's all green, that's D.H. Horton, or D.R. Horton homes. So all they do is list homes. They don't work with any buyers at all, and they don't refer out, and so on and so forth. So kind of an interesting model there, but whatever.
That makes sense. That clarifies that color question.
Yes. Okay. So still then within January, we can go to the next one. Now I look at the number of units, and we really shot up the ranks here. So we've got 5.5% market share versus 3.9% with the nearest competitor. Now, here's what's really important to me with that is, even though we were really tight on the dollars and volume, what this shows us when we look at the number of units is that we actually have more clientele who is out there making those purchases or selling those homes in more appetizing price ranges. If a company is out there, let's just say, and with the number 3 or the number 2 company there, they deal a lot in new construction.
Yep, that's what I was going to ask.
At a higher price range, and those things hit the brakes, and it's slow to respond. So the correction there's a lot of trouble with that.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah. So each broker has its own, like, say you have 10, a total of 10 agents, and 7 of them work in new construction and 3 of them don't, right? Versus a company that maybe 3 of them work in new construction, 7 of them don't. So that's just the differences.
Right. There can be an issue with putting all your eggs in one basket.
That's what I was going to say, diversifying, right? Just
absolutely.
Like you don't want every one of your house listed at 200,000 either, right?
Or $1 million.
Yeah, or $1 million. Yeah, it's across the board. How do you measure that? Besides those 2 slides, how do you measure that within a brokerage of, like, do they do more new construction? Or, like, is there a way that an agent could, like, see that?
It's a little difficult to pull out, and that usually comes through the multiple listing service.
Yeah.
So it's an incredibly labor intensive task. Les Solgrove, some statistics on new construction versus resale, but not necessarily which office
or agent even, because it's really
with those offices. When you start to look at their market share, and this is, you just pointed on to something very important. Sometimes we'll see a mega team who is doing the majority of that new construction business. Maybe they have 8 or 10 or 12 agents working with them, but they comprise of nearly half the market share of that brokerage. So the other agents are starving.
Yep.
That's a kind of a difficult position to be in.
What size of brokers are usually showing that? Like, how many agent count wise? Like, is it?
I would have to dig into that a little bit, but when we look at our competition here, when we're looking at market share, by and large, we are nearly the same in agent count per office.
Okay.
So when I say that we've divided these out to a per office situation, there's actually one of the offices that you'll see that come into play here at the number 2 through number 4 position that actually consolidated a couple of their offices into one.
Yep.
Success leads clues. People are noticing what we're doing. Now that office has, I want to say, 48 more agents than we have on count, yet we're dramatically outproducing them.
Yep. So and that's fine. Like, you're never gonna have apples to apples. You have to share. You have to the average, the total, the per agent volume is probably volume in units probably a good indicator.
Right. Yeah.
Because we do have way more agents than some brokers, right?
Yes.
But we have less agents than others. So all comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're into January, or I'm sorry, let's go into February. Yeah.
Yep.
So the dollars and volume. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are going to kind of go back to where we started here. So right here, we're at 6.5% market share, nearest competition at 5.4% market share. However, what we notice is that the number 2 position, there was a leapfrog there.
Huh.
So the number 4 went into number 2, and the number 2 went to number 3. There's some market upset there. Another thing that I noticed, remember when we talked about 1.9 units per agent that month, we're still right there. The next 2 offices are 1.5, followed by a 1.6. We start to see that number change dramatically there. Okay. Now we go into the number of units. Here's where we start to see a really interesting thing occurring is now we're at 6.8% market share versus 4.4% So that's over a 30%. In fact, that's about 35% gap in between us and the nearest competition, seeing a little bit of a shift in their market. So what is not happening there, and what have we been doing that is keeping us on that steady? We're still at 1.9. So consistency is dramatically important.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So then if we jump into the March numbers, since we just closed out that month, here's what's really, really fun for me as the leader of our market center. This is where I see something really fun. And we've never done this before, where we're at 7.2% market share in dollars and volume. We've never hit the 7% before, with the nearest competition at 5.8%. And then when we look at the next number of units, we're at 7.6% market share, which is 34% above our nearest competition at 5%.
Gotcha.
34%. Again, we're still at that 1.9 units per agent. There's kind of the secret sauce there is what is going on and how are we so consistent?
Yeah.
And I truly wholeheartedly believe that is the diversity of our marketplace. We haven't just rested in the new construction. The companies that we have seen historically in the past that have rested in new construction kind of go belly up. Many people around here probably weren't around during when Regency Homes was in the market. They were a premier home builder. They were selling 600 to 700 new homes a year, and they pushed their envelope. They said, we're going to do 1,100 homes this year. And then we had the financial debacle that happened. And
the first one.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, the 2008 financial debacle. And that was it. That was a major company. They had one of the biggest offices in West Des Moines.
They're still called the Regency offices.
Right? And so just literally overnight, they went out of business. And I don't want to say to no fault of their own. They tried pushing the boundaries too far, but then they had the domino effect happen on them, and it just wiped it out, along with the developers that they were, kind of in bed
the contractors
with.
that they didn't pay.
Yeah. It was a mess.
Yep. This data shows Keller Williams at the top of everything.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love Keller Williams. I will not leave.
Sure.
I'm a Keller Williams person, but I'm also always want to be objective, right?
Of course.
So what are we missing here? Yeah, I know you are. And that's why I want to bring you up. Yeah. What are we missing here in this data of what was not talked about that maybe we are not as high on the charts of? Or what would someone that's competing say, Dave, agent, come work for our broker, not Keller Williams.
Sure.
This data doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Some of the things that we could have been looking at would be average price per sale.
Okay.
Ours is going to be dramatically lower. However, I would have 100 dramatically lower sales rather than 50, just a little bit higher sales. So that's probably one of the biggest things that people might look at. So now our count per agent looks pretty good. However, when they look at it and say, well, the average price at this brokerage is $495,000 and at yours it's $312,000. Okay. That's a big gap. However, people are eating more of that.
A percentage of something is better than nothing.
I'd love to have a half a loaf of bread rather than no bread. So that's one of the biggest ones. However, the other thing is when people say, "What is the difference? Why?"
Yes, that's what I was going to next.
Yeah, why are you guys doing this? And this is a system of over the last 5 years, we have had the easy button at the ready. It's just I need another sale. Fog this mirror, boom, sale comes from it. It was shooting fish in a barrel. Negotiating tactics were thrown out the window. Now we have this new thing that most agents haven't heard of called a price reduction or negotiating. It used to just be, my people are interested in this. A sign just went in a yard. Me and 38 other people are going to submit an offer for $50,000 over list price and waive appraisals and waive inspections and all the other stupid crap that will get you in a pickle down the road because of that feeding frenzy that's going on. So we trained differently. And it's yes, that is happening. However, you guys, we've been talking about it for 5 years now. This market is not sustainable. A shift is coming. So let's still work on the basics. We still had to know how to do a market analysis. And a market analysis wasn't necessarily to see what is the peak that we can have that house going for. That's what a lot of people think it is. How high can we push this? Okay. But ultimately, what the market analysis in my eyes is, how can we keep from leaving money on the table?
Yep.
So if you're selling a house for me and I can give you a hell of an argument on why your house should probably sell at $312,500 based on my market analysis, then we know, and our markets are incredibly thorough, we know that an appraiser can look at that. If appraiser comes in and says, well, I only appraise this house at 307, well, that could cost my client $5,500 in their net. Well, I can go back to the appraiser and say, here's my argument, here are my comps. And sometimes they will say to you, oh, you know what, I missed that one. And that does make up the difference. Boom, we're good. Rather than, I mean, man, I've seen some people that just go out and say, well, the average price per square foot in this neighborhood is X. Oh my God, that's, I mean, that's the quickest way to either leave a home sitting on the market for too long because it's overpriced, or leaving money on the table. Either is a cardinal sin.
I don't attend other brokers' meetings, right? I talk to other agents, but we really don't get into the education piece of things. So you're telling me that other brokers might not be hitting the fundamentals of lead generation, contacting your past clients, because that's all Keller, like, that's one of the reasons I came to Keller Williams, is I like that model, right?
Yeah.
Other brokers, we don't have those systems, or at least that's what this data is telling us.
I can't speak to them too much because I also don't attend their meetings. They won't let me in. It's weird.
I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah. So what I have to do at that point is speculate and say, where are they housing all of their inventory? And if indeed it is new construction generally doesn't teach you the fundamentals of a market analysis. It is literally the builder says, this is how much I have to have for the house based on the cost we have in it and our profit margin. So whereas our resale residential, it's a completely different game. My speculation is that that's where the big difference lies, is because we don't hang our hats on the overabundance of new construction. We have to be a skill-based agent core rather than a speed or volume-based agent core.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share with anyone about this?
Well, I would also say that just our education model is indeed, I mean, it's very robust. If you look at our training calendar, it's a steady batch of courses, and some of them are repeat. You know, once a quarter we do it again because we do have new people coming in, and you don't just do it once and forget about it. So it's a steady group of classes, and these classes are generally taught by the higher producing agents who have been there, done that, not just the trainer on staff.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things is when I see certain people teaching, I'm like, yep, I'm going to that one.
Absolutely.
Do you know it? Yep.
Yeah.
Do I want to learn more? Yep.
Yeah.
So I go.
And when do you quit learning? You know, I mean, and you teach classes, you know, so you're one of those.
No, I get it. Cool. I appreciate you. Thanks for explaining the numbers.
You bet, man.
I find that it's just interesting. It adds, color to all of the different brokers that say, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best. We have the best agents. We do the best, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And like the numbers don't lie.
The numbers don't lie.
And if they, if your numbers are bad, then, we might present and just say, hey, we slid here.
Yeah. But what happened? And that's where, in our team meetings, we have our masterminds. What are you seeing out there? What's going on out there? What are you feeling? Tell me who's got new listings coming up. And when the room is quiet, I get nervous.
Yeah.
So, and we have had some of that in the past. I mean, geez, back in December, when we saw the numbers were bad and I said, who has up and coming listings? And the room is quiet. And it's like, whew.
I remember.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hey, you are very welcome. All right.